Poet Ralph Waldo Emerson famously wrote, "To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a better place, whether by a cherished child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived, this is to have succeeded." Beloved family and friends, we are gathered here in the protective shelter of God's amazing grace and love to celebrate the truly successful life of Raymond Howard Benedix. We come to honor his life, to express our profound gratitude for his place in our lives. We also come in grief, acknowledging our human loss. So we come to surround each other with tender comfort and solidarity in our sorrow. We come to say things about Ray and really to him, for surely his spirit is with us, smiling through the pictures and calling out through our cherished memories. May this time of being together, of offering our prayers and gifts of music, sharing our memories and words of tribute, may this give us hope and courage for the days ahead and be a chance to truly celebrate Ray's life and legacy and the amazing qualities of his which bring a smile to our hearts, which strengthen our faith, and which will live on in all those whose lives he touched. I welcome you all, those, of course, gathered here in Ray's beautiful church, First Church Congregational of Methuen, and those of you who are able to join us online. We are grateful to welcome you all to this time of worship and remembrance. So let us stand in body or spirit as we join in our hymn, "It Is Well With My Soul." You may be seated. Please join me in prayer. Loving God, eternal one, who gave us birth and in whose arms we die, we gather in sincere gratitude for 90 years of a life well lived, and we offer our heartfelt thank you. We also come in grief, acknowledging this loss and the enormous empty space in our midst that Ray filled with his boundless hope, his playful spirit, his inspiring faith, and his generous love. Comfort us in our grief, give strength in our weakness. Through our memories, encourage and sustain us. Faithful and gracious God, surround Ray's family with your grace and the peace that passes all human understanding. Be with Anne, Cindy, and Paul. Be with their extended family members gathered here and scattered across the country. And be with so many others whose friendship and love made us like family too. Speak to us in this time of remembrance and worship, and may Ray's spirit of friendship and compassion, determination and courage fill this sanctuary he loved with peace in the midst of our pain. We pray in the name of Jesus the Christ, who taught us that we could pray with confidence these words that we will now hear in song.
Which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever.
Of course, when words don't seem adequate, the power of music and the beauty of poetry, verse, and holy writings can offer such comfort and strength. So listen to the time-honored thoughts and beloved words of scripture and poetry read by these members of Ray's family, Eleanor and Patricia.
My shepherd is the living God, a poem paraphrasing Psalm 23 by Thomas Sternhold and Isaac Watts. My shepherd is the living God, I therefore nothing need. In pastures fair, near pleasant streams, you settle me to feed. You bring my wandering spirit back when I forsake your ways, and lead me for your mercy's sake in paths of truth and grace. When I walk through the shades of death, your presence is my stay. A word of your supporting breath drives all my fears away. Your hand, in sight of all my foes, does still my table spread. My cup with blessing overflows, your oil anoints my head. The sure provisions of my God attend me all my days. O may your house be my abode, and all my work be praise. There would I find a settled rest where others come and go. No more a stranger or a guest, but like a child at home.
In the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember him. In the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember him. In the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember him. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember him. When we have joy we yearn to share, we remember him. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember him. When we have achievements that are based on his, we remember him. As long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him.
Take thou my hand and lead me unto the end. In life and death I need thee, O blessed friend. I cannot live without thee for one brief day.
Raymond Howard Benedix was born on April 24th, 1932, the youngest son of Henry, a shoe factory pattern maker, and Ethel, a homemaker. As with many a youngest sibling, Ray was mischievous, energetic, and creative. Growing up, his family faithfully attended church, where he met young Anne Rosbach. Their first date was to the Westminster Fellowship Halloween party. Can't you just picture that? After attending school, being drafted into the Army, and serving during the Korean War, he and Anne were married on October 22nd, 1955, learning that theirs was the 1,000th wedding in that church. Their honeymoon was a road trip, and they've been road tripping ever since. Driving all across the country, camping, RVing, national park sightseeing, visiting friends and family along the way, and building up a vast memory of places and people, while always returning to this, their beloved New England home. 3 years into their marriage, their adored daughter, Cynthia Ellen, was born. Cindy also remembers those family trips to historical places, camping trips up and down the eastern seaboard. She lovingly remembers Saturday mornings as her special time with her dad, running errands to the hardware store, to the butcher for liverwurst, or the German bakery for warm rye bread or yummy lemon tarts. As you will hear in a moment, Ray and family were devout members of the United Presbyterian Church until the day it closed its doors, at which point he and Anne became active members of this church. So let us invite these family and church member friends to come and share some remembrances as we continue to honor Ray. Let's begin with Gary.
Aunt Ann, can you hear me? Aunt Ann, Cindy, Paul, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share a few memories of Uncle Ray, a man that I really looked up to and I still look up to today. I hadn't planned on bringing this with me, but when I looked at the bulletin, I saw celebration of the life of Raymond H. Benedix. I looked down at the picture and I said, yeah, that's the guy I remember. He was one of the best dresses I could remember. You know, we would get together for every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every birthday, and until he was retired for a while, he always showed up with a tie on. And I look down at this and say, I would like to be able to dress like that. But I don't think any of us could. If you wanted to dress like that, you had to know Aunt Ann, because I think most of his ties you made. And I must say that I'm very fortunate that I do have some of those ties at home, and I wish I had thought about that this morning when I came in. But that's one of the fond memories I have of Uncle Ray is he would come impeccably dressed, and I'd look up to that and say, that's kind of what I want to look like. I like that. And also with Uncle Ray, he always made me smile. I mean, I was talking to Aunt Ann the other day, and I said, well, he was a joker. And I said, nah, that's not right. He didn't tell jokes. He would just take the situation and make it light. When when something would be going on, you'd see him, he'd be very serious, and all of a sudden you could see the corners of his mouth turn up a little bit, and you knew something was coming. It's kind of like when Cindy and I were talking the last time I had a chance to visit with my Uncle Ray, and we had a remembrance then, back on Christmas. I mean, Christmas was a wonderful time of the year. Always looked forward to Christmas Eve. As a family, we always got together, went to my grandmother and grandfather's house. The whole family was there, and we shared gifts on Christmas Eve. I mean, this tradition continued right into the 80s. Even after my grandfather had passed, you know, we went to my grandmother's, you know, and the tradition continued. And I'm thinking of one particular, I don't know if you remember what we were talking about the other day? You know, Uncle Ray, he was there, and, you know, we're opening gifts, and I forget which one of us opened a gift. It was a shirt, and it was this curious material. It was really, really kind of neat, you know, and none of us knew exactly what it was. He took the box, he kind of reached in, and he put his fingers between it, and he looked at us, he said, "It's felt." I hate to say it, that is my sense of humor. That's when my sense of humor starts. So I apologize to anybody around me that knows me, that, you know, the play on words, I mean, he was always doing something like that. But you could kind of tell when it was coming because he got serious and then a little bit of a smile. But he always made me smile. I mean, an amazing man. You know, I think of another time. I mean, Thanksgiving was another time we always got together as a family. And one year it was at my parents' house. And my dad, you know, as we talked about the camping, we did a lot of camping, and we did a lot of camping together. Actually, you guys went to the meadows, we went to the field. I think there was something to the fact that you guys lived in Lawrence, lots of people around, so you went to the campsites where there weren't lots of people around. And we were out at Little Island Pond, and, you know, for most of the year we were by ourselves, so we went to the field where there were lots of people, so we each got what we wanted, but we got together quite often. And I saw a picture of Dolly Kopp there, which really, you know, brings home a lot of memories, and Uncle Ray is right there with those particular memories. But on Thanksgiving, my dad had this hat that had started out as a little straw hat with a little fishing hat, you know, and he put a couple of lures on it every year, and when we go camping, he'd find, I don't know, maybe a flower that looked interesting, a four-leaf clover, we'd put it on the hat, a piece of moss, maybe a piece of driftwood. Next thing you knew, the hat was just full of everything. And as a matter of fact, it's still in my parents' house, and I looked at it today, and now he had put a bird's nest on the top of it. But I'll never forget, and there's a picture of it somewhere, it's a black and white. We were kind of experimenting with black and white photography and developing at that time. There's a picture of my Uncle Ray with his hands on the hip with that hat on at Thanksgiving, and he was just, it just cracks me up. I mean, I don't know if you remember that, but I think it was he, my dad, and my brother and I were kind of over in the corner doing something, you know, maybe talking about the black and white photography, and he saw that there, but he always made the situation light, you know, so that was really special to me. And, you know, as time went on, my parents moved away, you know, and unfortunately when the church did, you know, church was a lot to all of us. When it did close down, we were living up north. And my dad decided to build a house. A little unusual, you know, and he never stuck to convention, but that has nothing to do with the story. And one of the things I always look forward to, and it seemed like it happened many, many times, is in the early 80s, my aunt and Uncle Ray, they upgraded to a motorhome. You know, they had the motorhome, and it was not unusual for a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday midday to see that motorhome come into my parents' yard as they were heading from the mountains back to Lawrence. And I'm thinking of one day in particular. With my dad, one of my things I loved to do was build stone walls. So we were building a retaining wall. The motorhome came in, Uncle Ray jumped out, and I think we spent 4 or 5 hours working together and finished that wall. I mean, he was always there, always lending a hand. And there was more than one joke that went on, and I think we had more than one pun about placing rocks in the yard. But you know, such fond memories. You know, And I did mention the fact that as a family, we always got together for Thanksgiving. It was tradition. One year it would be at Aunt Evelyn's house, and the whole family would go there. The next year it would be at Aunt Ann and Uncle Ray's house. We'd all go there. And then it would go to my parents' house, as I had mentioned before when talking about the hat. The best was always going to my Aunt Ann and Uncle Ray's house. It was different than my house in the fact that when I came up the stairs into the kitchen, Uncle Ray was not out in the TV room watching football. He wasn't working on a project. He was in with Aunt Ann, and they were working together making this most wonderful Thanksgiving dinner. When I think of him, he was a man way before his time, way before it was popular to dig in and be part of, everything. It seemed like he and Aunt Ann did everything together. If there were dishes to be done, he was there to do that, and during Thanksgiving, we'd all kind of squirrel off and do what we were doing and sometimes watch a little football in the TV room. Uncle Ray would pop in for a little while, but if there was cooking to be done, if there was cleanup to be done, he was there for that. Another quick little memory too on those Thanksgiving, and Cindy, we talked about this a little bit also. We had a little tradition, where the kids, the adults, I remember my aunt and Uncle Ray, they had this pretty good sized couch, and the adults would sit on the couch, and Uncle Ray and my grandfather would kind of sit side by side sometime, and we'd play hide the turkey on the little guys. We were just little guys. And we'd go off in the other room, they'd hide the turkey someplace, it's Thanksgiving, and we'd come in and look for it. And, a lot of times we couldn't find it. And it was with my grandfather or Uncle Ray, they'd be passing it back and forth as we get close to it. And then usually, in one of them, they'd probably tuck it into the sock or something like that, or their shoe, and we'd find it eventually. But it just always made it fun. And, life was always, and has, and is always great, And the memories I have of Uncle Ray, sustain me, and I went through some old albums, recently, and I have some pictures from my grandparents, and I could see there weren't so many of the old pictures here, but Uncle Ray was he was kind of a skinny kid, and you remember me, Cindy, I was kind of a skinny kid too, so I'd look at those pictures as a kid, and I'd say, I too can grow up to be like Uncle Ray, and he's a man that I've tried to emulate through my life, and I really think a lot of him, so he's very special to me. Now there's a little quote, I'm not great at quotes, but that meant a lot to me when I first heard this, and it has to do with grief, and it was from our president, Joe Biden, who has suffered a lot of grief in his life. He said, "There will come a day, I promise you, when the thoughts of your son or your daughter or your wife or husband," and I will add father, uncle, friend to this quote, "brings a smile to your lips before it brings a tear to your eye. It will happen. My prayer for you is that day will come sooner than later." I think of my Uncle Ray often. I have a smile on my face. He always brings a smile to my face, so that day has come for me. There is a tear in my eye too, but the memories, I love it when they come because they bring a smile to my face. Thank you.
Like many of my friends here at First Church, I got to know Ray while working side by side with him on outreach projects, church dinners. If I recall correctly, my first experience working with Ray was our monthly meal preparation for Bread and Roses, a soup kitchen in nearby Lawrence. Once a month, a group of us met mid-afternoon in the church kitchen to chop and cook vegetables and chicken and put together multiple large chicken pot pies, a favorite of the dinner guests at Bread and Roses. Ray was the guy at the center of our group, full of energy, working hard and telling stories, always with a smile on his face. His sense of humor kept all of us laughing. Ray was also a great problem solver. I remember trying to figure out how I was going to carry these giant pots of boiling carrots across the kitchen to drain them. No problem. Ray wheeled over a cart, lifted one pot at a time onto the cart, and we slowly wheeled each of them to the sink. After we were done cooking, Ray insisted on bringing home all the empty soup cans so that he could recycle them. The following day, he returned to the church, filled his trunk with 8 to 10 large chicken pot pies, and he would deliver them to Bread and Roses. About 10 years ago, I took on the role of outreach committee chairperson for a couple years. I was nervous about taking on the leadership role, worrying about the responsibilities and whether I was up to it. The outreach committee was much smaller at that time, but it was a great group of people, which included Ray. Ray was there, encouraging me and helping me build my self-confidence. I'll always be thankful for that support. Ray amazed and impressed me with all the activities he was involved with through our church as well as through other community-based groups around the area. I believe he inspired many of us who spent time with him to get involved in meaningful activities, to use our time and skills to help others, basically to live out our faith through our actions, and in doing so, enriching our own lives. Thank you, Ray, for your life lessons and the gifts that you shared with all of us. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm going to talk to you, Ann. I didn't know Ray that long. I wish I'd known him longer. When you talked to me about getting up here today, this is not easy for me. I was very concerned. I had no idea what I was going to do. I thought about Ray. I thought about myself. I thought about the church. I couldn't pull anything together. And then my grandmother came into my thoughts. And I thought about her. I spent a lot of time with her when I was little. She wanted to teach me certain values, and she drilled them into me hard. And one of the things she taught me was friendship. She was very concerned about my friends having the same values that I had, and that she was concerned that I might have a friend that might take me down the wrong path if they weren't a good person. I had several friends that didn't fit her bill. And one of them stole from Mr. Beck on Pleasant Street. And I was there that day, and I didn't like it, so our friendship ended. The other friend, my grandmother simply didn't like him, and she made it very clear she didn't like him. And her ongoing warning to me was, tell me what your friends do, and young man, I'm telling you where you're going to end up. And she was right. Ray met all those criteria that she set forward. I don't know when I first met Ray, but Ray initiated the conversation. I know that for a fact. After a while of having conversations with Ray, I learned, I don't know where Gary went, oh, there he is, the motorhome came up. And he talked about enjoying the motorhome and traveling with it. Eventually, it came out that Bobby and I had a motorhome. We had sold it and bought a trailer. Ray wanted to know how that was working out, and I had to tell him that I was having major problems with the dealer, and now the manufacturer had filed for bankruptcy, so I was on my own. And Ray stepped right up and said, "You need to go see my friend Ken. Ken will take care of you." And I went to see Ken, and as soon as Ken knew that Ray had sent me, the doors opened up. He was fantastic. He more than went out of his way to help me. And the first repair he did was done quickly, and it was great. Cindy, you stole my thunder. Bobby and I were asked by, I don't know whether it was Ray, Ann, or a combination of the two of you, to help out with Bread and Roses 1 month cooking. And we said we would do it. We were there, we cooked, we helped, we got done, and as I went to leave, Ray said, "See you next month." It was like, I thought I was here for one time. And we went the next month, or the Sunday before the next one, he says, "Don't forget, we're cooking tomorrow." I said, "Okay." And then he shifted gears on me. "Think you could take the food down to the pantry every month?" I said, "Yeah, I guess." But when I got to the pantry, they came out and they said, "Where's Ray?" I said, "Ray has asked me to do this." "Where's Billy?" "Billy retired." I said, "Okay." Then they were okay. Then the next meeting was, "Alan, do you think you can help start buying the food, shopping for it?" "Yep." Then after that it was, "Don't you have ties to a supply place that does restaurants?" I said, "Yeah." "Can you start doing a pricing thing to see if we get a better deal there?" And we could. And then it was, "Alan, can you start going there and buying the food for us and bringing it here?" I said, "Yeah, I can do that, Ray." Ray was very unique. He was everything my grandmother talked about. I went to end this, and I wrote something down, and I said, "I've heard that line before. Is this plagiarism?" I didn't know what I was doing. So I Googled it, and it was a song from 1978. I have to take a deep breath before I read this. One of the verses is, "And we both get older, with walking canes and hair of gray. Have no fear, even though it's hard to hear. I'll stand real close and say, thank you for being a friend."
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Alan. I am so happy to share now the greetings of two of Ray's beloved pastors. First, this letter from the honorably retired Reverend Dr. Robert Gustafson, who was pastor of Christ Presbyterian Church in Lawrence. And then a letter from the Reverend William D. Ingraham, the pastor of this church. From Pastor Bob. Ray Benedix was the kind of ordained deacon and elder that a young pastor wanted to have close by his side. And Ray was exactly that kind of church leader. He gave himself unstintingly in so many diverse ways, from offering helpful ideas in governing meetings to painting file cabinets so that they would blend in with the church study decor, to leading the annual Sauerbraten dinners. Did I say that right, Cindy? Okay, thank you. Which were a highlight of the church year. He was always ready to pitch in whenever and wherever there was a need at Christ Presbyterian Church. He was such a steady and valued presence at session meetings when difficult issues were under discussion. Ray had a clear mind and a calming disposition that I so much valued. Moreover, whether there was some practical project that needed attention or an idea that needed a second opinion, I could always count on Ray to offer himself unselfishly, to step up, to assist in any way possible. In many respects, he was my right-hand associate in those years. He was a superb worker in wood, including the newly created communion cup holders, which he installed in the pews, plus several beautiful works of wood that reside in our home in Williamsburg, Virginia. There are some wood pieces in the parish hall that we will be showing you as well. His talents were many, and he put them to excellent use in the service of the church and of friends. He was indeed a friend at all times and in all seasons. Not a member nor an officer at the church did I treasure and rely on more than Ray Benedix. Beyond the church, Ray, along with his lifelong and beloved wife Anne, was a close friend over decades of time, beginning in the early 1970s right up through 2005, when we were privileged to celebrate their 50th anniversary. Followed in 2008 when they visited us in Williamsburg. Ray served as an emergency chauffeur to drive me to the Norfolk Heart Hospital for an emergency angioplasty operation, plus visiting during the recovery time at the hospital. Ray was present in times of pleasure and relaxation, such as during the winter months when the four of us cross-country skied together along Penobscot Bay. Did I say that right? Followed by our annual New Year's Eve Maine lobster dinner in our Belfast, Maine home, to driving to the hospital for a life-threatening coronary operation and serving along with Anne as a steadying and caring presence through that very scary experience. Service was in Ray's blood, and he stepped up to the plate whenever and wherever a need was present. It's hard to contemplate after almost 50 years with Ray always there, to the remaining years of our lives without that esteemed servant of God and servant of the church. And of all those he touched in one way or another, the marks that he left are many, and the lives he touched and enhanced, including mine, were so much better and richer because of the person he was and the acts of love and generosity that he did. My admiration and affection will live on as long as I have the gift of life and the memory of the lives of those who knew and love Ray Benedix. And here is the letter from Reverend William D. Ingraham, pastor of this church, who is currently on sabbatical. Bill writes, "My life is better because I knew Ray Benedix. These words are true, and not just for me, but for everyone who hears these words said today, and for many, many people who will never hear these words. Ray was the kind of person you were really glad to know. Friendly, warm-hearted, and kind to a fault. He had a great sense of humor and a big smile that came easily and often. He was such a dear man. I miss him already. Ray loved this church. I mean, really loved this church. And he was the kind of member every pastor dreams of having. If there was a worship service, he was there, always there. If there was a potluck, a bean supper, or the George Washington's birthday dinner, he was there. Special event, program, project, Ray was there, always, and too. And you knew that if Ray wasn't there, wasn't here, then something was up. Maybe he was sick, or he and Ann were traveling, or they were volunteering for some worthy cause. Maybe they were at home because of the pandemic, as we all were then. But you knew that if Ray Benedix wasn't at church, there was a good reason. You could count on it. You could count on Ray. And Ray wasn't just here, he was really here, actively here. He was shaking hands, hugging, and telling stories. He was listening closely and considerately. He was smiling. He was laughing. He was helping. He was loving. Loving you, loving life, loving God, loving his neighbor. Ray was a helpful man. As a member of the outreach ministry team of our church, he helped chart the course of our service in the community by his passions and interests. He helped build homes for the homeless, and with him, so did we. He helped feed hungry people with good food, and with him, so did we. He walked to raise money for more causes than I can name, for more years than you can imagine, and with him, so did we. Ray did a lot of good in this world, and with him, so did we. Ray made a difference in the world one day at a time, day after day, and year after year. Because of him, this world is a better place. Because of him, this church is a better place. And because of him, my life and your life too is better, far better than ever it could have been without him. I give thanks and praise to God for Ray Benedix and for a good and faithful life well lived. We gratefully hold all of these memories and tributes and blessings as we come now to a time of prayer. Will you join me? Please bow your heads for prayer. Into your hands, O merciful Savior, we commend your servant Ray Benedix. Acknowledge, we pray, a sheep of your own fold, a lamb of your own flock, and a son of your own redeeming. Receive him into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the company of the saints in light. No matter how much we talk about this time as a celebration of life, we ask you, dear God, to help us bear the sorrow that comes from the loss of this one who has meant so much to us. We do thank you for Ray's life, for the joys and challenges, the ups and downs that shaped his character, the family that filled him with such pride, the friendships he enjoyed, and everything that made him special to us. We thank you for the amazing care given to Ray in these last months by his family, by his church family, and by the dedicated friends and caregivers at Cedar View Rehab and Healthcare Center. To Ray, we say, we will remember you. Thank you for your presence among us and the myriad ways you have enriched our lives. We commend you to God as you journey beyond our sight. May you be welcomed with the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Enter into your reward, where weakness, suffering, and illness are no more, where every tear is wiped away and all things are made new. These things we pray in the name of Jesus, the resurrection and the life. Amen. Friends, I didn't know Ray as most of you did. In fact, I met him at the Cedar View facility shortly after I arrived in Methuen from my home in Hawaii. Ray had already transitioned into hospice care, so I went into his room, introduced myself as the sabbatical pastor Lauren, and pulled out my ukulele to sing. It was when I started the hymn Amazing Grace that I saw his lips moving with the beloved words to what he had clearly sung countless times before. So Anne and Cindy invite us all to stand in body or in spirit and join Ray in receiving the comfort and blessing of singing this treasured hymn. please be seated and remain seated as representatives of the military render the honors due this one who has served his country well. On behalf of Anne and the family, I would like to sincerely thank each of you for honoring Ray with your presence today. After we stand for the benediction, I invite you to remain standing as the family exits the sanctuary, and then please follow us to the memorial garden just outside as we lovingly place Ray's ashes into the welcoming embrace of the earth. Then please do join us for a light luncheon in the parish hall, where our memories and stories of Ray's gifts to us will continue. And for those of you who missed the wonderful slideshow during visitation, we will be showing it again in the hall. Now please stand on your feet or in your heart to receive the commendation and the benediction. Rest in God's peace, Ray Benedix, in the love of God most holy, who created you and who welcomes you to your eternal home. Friends and family, you who are living, remember Ray. Speak for his silence. Continue his legacy. Work in a garden. Put a bird's nest on your hat. Listen to your grandmother when you're choosing your friends. Recycle soup cans. Carve something out of wood. Cook for a crowd. Serve those in need. And when there are no words, use a duck whistle. Pray without ceasing. Bless the breath of life. Sing of the hidden patterns. And when it is your time, leave the world a little bit better. Amen.
Thank you.